and welcome to another exciting episode of Becoming the Product. I am your host, Naya, and today I am going to take you behind the scenes of how I landed my current job and share some tips that helped me ace the interview process. If you're in the middle of job hunting or thinking about making a career move, this episode is definitely for you. But before I go ahead, I would like to say a big thank you for the support I have received on the voting for my APVA award. The voting ended this past weekend and hopefully we made the cut. I just wanted to say a very big thank you for everyone who were able to do a little bit for me by voting, and I hope that we win this award eventually. We'll know by the end of September. So let's go into today's episode. So my job process was kind of different. While I was in the bootcamp, I just focused on optimizing my LinkedIn. I focused on learning in public. I focused on building those skills. So I wasn't really pursuing jobs per se. My mantra was that my job will find me. That was what I told myself. But I just wanted to be sure that I was prepared and I was open so that when the opportunity came, I could really get into it. Just like what my guest from Naya mentioned as well. So when this opportunity came up, it was during one of my community meetings. So if you don't know, I'm also part of the dev career community. And in the product management channel, we sometimes have a bi-weekly chat where we sit down and talk to other PMs and have a conversation with them. And after the meeting one day, my mentor, I call him my mentor, even though he doesn't know, he kind of like had a private talk with me that he has this company he's building and he feels that I'll be good for this particular role. So he wanted me to send in an application. And this application, it wasn't just like your typical submit a CV. When I clicked on the link, it was basically application questions. There are about 3 in number and 2 required video. Then the last one required me to complete a task. Now, prior to this, if you remember, my job after the bank was a remote company. So I was used to these unconventional ways of sending in videos for applications because some of the jobs I had applied for before required this. But I needed to do it in a better way. So I had researched a lot of job interview tips before then. I had studied like behavioral questions and all. And they always tell you to use the STAR approach. And that was like my main strategy in answering those questions. So I first of all looked at the questions because they were kind of behavioral. What I mean is that it's okay, something like if you were put in this situation, how would you do it? Or if you were in your team and this happened, how would you do it? Those kind of scenario-based questions. So first thing I did was I took my time to really understand the question and really understand what it is exactly they wanted me to portray. Then I used the STAR method. If you don't know the STAR method, it's an acronym that stands for Situation, Task, Action, and Results. It's a structured way of answering behavioral interview questions by laying out the context, what you were responsible for, what you did, and what the outcome was. So I used this to structure my answers. And the video, I had a limited time to also script out what I wanted to say and make sure I was putting it out. And I was able to use this method to clearly demonstrate my ability, the things I could do, and how I approach challenges, my problem solving activities, and all that. So I remember I took about 2 days to do all that. Then the third day, I recorded the videos, I did everything, the instructions, then I sent in the application. It's after the application was sent, and I got an email a couple of days later to I think it was to send. I think my CV was sent at the end of everything. So what I'm trying to point out was that my CV in this particular role wasn't that important because the owner of the company wanted to see how I responded to the question. The questions were the most important part of this. That's why I took my time to ensure I did well in that aspect. So after a couple of days, I sent in my CV and I had like an interview to talk about some of the questions, some of my responses, and also the pay for the job and when to start. So I was really happy because I didn't think that I did enough, but I was sure because of the way I was able to respond to those questions, this helps me get another audience um, with the supervisor, with the owner of the company. So I wanted to not also talk of my strategies, but also talk of some other things you could do, a few more job application and interview tips. So, like I said, your CV, even though I didn't really use it or it wasn't the main front for this particular role, it was already optimized before then. So ensure your CV highlights your impact. Don't just list responsibilities. Showcase your achievements. Try to put figures. Make it quantifiable. So for instance, instead of saying, especially for product management, make sure you use like keywords that are necessary or that portray that you know what you're doing. So instead of saying something like, I led a project, you could just make it like maybe I led a cross-functional team that increased product adoption by 30%. In this way, you're speaking to a PM. The person that sees that says, okay, yes, your numbers are speaking volumes, especially in product management. They understand what you mean by cross-functional team, product adoption, and the figure there. That statement alone highlights about three skills. So try to put that in the way you describe some of the things on your CV. Another one will be to do your homework. Ensure you know the company. So when the application was sent to me, a link to what the company does was also sent to me. So I had to read up what the company does, the services it does. I needed to like imbibe myself with the products and services. So that's one thing you should do. Do your homework on the company, on its products. This goes beyond just browsing the websites. Like try to understand their market. If you can identify their competitors, even the challenges they are facing, if you can do all that, it will help you, especially when if you are doing some follow-up interviews and some questions are thrown to you that you might struggle with, but because you've done this research, you are better equipped to respond. You can show that you've done your research by discussing how you can even contribute by solving the challenges that you've identified. This gives you an extra push. It pushes you to that 1%. Because when I was applying for jobs, and I said it before, when you want to click, you see 1,000 people have applied. You're like, 1,000 people. What makes my own application different? What puts me in that top 1%? Things like this can help. Number three would be ready to share your product management philosophy. Now, every PM has a different approach to how they do things. If you've identified how to do it, it's better you have imbibed that in you. And interviewers want to know how you think about building products. So whether you are more data driven, if your past experiences are more data related, or you are more customer centric, or you are focused on innovation, you have to be prepared to articulate your approach clearly. Last would be to practice your storytelling. Now, one thing is that in these behavioral questions or these situation based questions, the experiences are yours. It is you that went through those experiences. It is you that will be able to tell the story in a way that the person understands that it's because of this experience, this is why I am meant to be in this job. So, product management as a whole is even all about communicating your vision and you're bringing people along on that journey. So, when you're asked about past projects, frame your answers as stories. If you want to use the STAR method, it's a lot easier because it helps your story in a way. You talk about the situation, the context of, okay, this is what happened. I was so and so in so and so. Then you bring in the tax that, okay, we needed to do this, we needed to build this. Then you now talk of the action you did. I did this in this particular way with this particular person, and you put the results, and we're able to achieve this. There's a clear beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And because you've put it in a story format by not clearly saying, okay, this is the situation, this is the task, this is the action. No, let it flow in a way that you yourself have already structured it in a story format. It makes your experience more relatable and memorable to the interviewer. And A bonus tip is do not underestimate the power of the community. When I was joining the product management community, I was very strategic in the communities I joined. I tried to give as much as I can take. Apart from posting about my podcast content, I also try to participate in some things they do, like webinars, challenges. And in that career, it was because I asked a question. That was how I was able to become the channel lead there. And it helps me in this case because if I wasn't in this community, if I wasn't doing the things I was doing in this community, I wouldn't have been reached out to and I wouldn't have been offered an opportunity to apply for this role. So don't underestimate the power of community. Being part of a community that aligns with your career goals can open doors that you did not even know existed. And when these doors open, like I told you before, be prepared. That was one thing I took away from my conversation with Funaya. If you've not listened to that episode, go and have a listen. The tip he gave was that be prepared and be open. So that even though the jobs are not coming your way, ensure everything is set already. Think of your past experiences, think of all the questions you can possibly be asked, and start arranging your story. Be prepared to tell your story in a way that resonates with the interviewer. This STAR method is a great tool. It really helps me think about my story. If I look at the question, I just write out the STAR. That's okay. What situations do I have in my past experiences that can relate to this question? And how can I tell the story? So, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. I hope you found these tips helpful. I hope you feel a little bit more prepared in your next job application and interview. One thing with PM interviews is that it can be I don't know the word to use. It can be really hard, really challenging because they are majorly. You can even get to an interview and they tell you to on the spot. They give you a product and say, okay, how do you improve that? How do you do this? How do you solve this problem? How do you solve these challenges? And the only way for you to be able to think on those spots is if you are familiar with all these tools. So that's why that prepared stage is needed, so that you don't just go in there and you are blank. If you've prepared, it's okay. I've prepared these stories, I've worked on these frameworks, I know these PM frameworks, I know which situations they can be used. Okay, I understand that if I want to solve a challenge, I need to research, I need to know the target audience, I need to identify their pain points. Like if you understand and you've been prepared using general frameworks, general talks, or if you've looked at people's videos, it helps you so that when you're in that situation, even if you don't know what they're talking about, but because you had these things in your mind, it's easier for you to craft your responses. People in product community, PIP, they also do what they call interview prep every 2 Tuesdays. Someone comes up and talks about and says they want to be interviewed, and they bring in a mentor to come and interview. You can also be a part of that so that you understand how questions are asked. This helps you build your preparedness, if that's the word, so that when you do get in that space, because of the experiences you've listened to, because of how you prepared for it, you are more equipped to have a great interview. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe on Spotify. Follow our socials. My personal is on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I also have a newsletter where I share podcast episodes, podcast insights. I also have some free goodies there. There are a lot of resources there that I've created based on the episodes we've had. It's something that you could use to help your journey to becoming or to be a part of that 1% product manager. So thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and